Hello everyone, it's Shannon here from Pinkirch Studio. In today's video, we are going to create this card and do some foiling, and I'm going to share with you some of my favorite tips and tricks when working with your hot foiling plates. We're going to start today's card with the foiling. I have the Joyful Peonies hot foil plate here, and I'll also be using the Celebrating You hot foil plate. So first thing I'm going to do is grab my Glimmer hot foil system machine here. I'm going to turn it on by the back. There's a little switch there, turn it on, and when you've got it turned on, you'll see that red light indicating that the power is on. Now I have to wait until the green platform ready light turns on, which you see right there. Now that it's ready, I can start to place my plate down. But before I put my plate down, I do suggest that this is when you measure out your foil for your plate to get the right amount. You don't want to get too much. So I'm just going to kind of place that plate on top so I can kind of see where I need to cut it, and then place your plate down. You don't want to put your plate down and have it heat up and then cut out your foil. You can be a little bit more economical if you cut it before. So now I've got my plate down, I pressed my timer, and that timer light will blink and blink, and once it's ready, it'll stop blinking and just be green. And now I'm ready to assemble my sandwich. Here I have my foil. I'll place that shiny side down. Always make sure it's shiny side down. Then I will detach my platform from my Glimmer machine. I actually suggest that you do that very first before you start assembling your sandwich. After I've added my foil, I then add my cardstock. Then I'll move on to the thin shim that goes on top. And then after that, we finish with the spacer pad. And once I place that pad down, that spacer pad down, I actually have my sandwich complete. You can see how easy it is now to pick up this platform and then run it through my die cutting machine. It really does help to remove your platform first before you kind of stack your sandwich together. Here it is. After I ran it through, I'll just deconstruct my sandwich here, pull off that cardstock, and now I'll remove my foil. The foil that I'm using today is Aurora. It's a super pretty glimmer foil. I love that there's tons of different types of foil that you could use. This is a really kind of a slightly matte iridescent gold. I love it. It's really pretty. I'm now going to move on to foiling with the Celebrating You plate. I've placed it down on my machine and pressed the timer, and it's all ready to go now. I'm paying attention closely to the grid that's on the plate because the platform. That's going to help me line up my cardstock. Again, I'll start by pulling the platform away from the machine, placing down my foil shiny side down, and then I will grab my white cardstock here and place it within those grid lines that the plate is. And that really does help. So pay attention to those grid lines. That also help to allow you to be a little bit more economical with your cardstock. Then next goes my shim, then my spacer, and now I'll grab my sandwich and run it through my die cutting machine just like I did before. Here it is all done. I'll remove all my plates and peel off the foil, and we have all of our sentiments foiled, really pretty and ready for me to die cut. I'm now going to move actually on to ink blending. I have the Joyful Peonies layering stencil set here, and I'm going to ink blend over my foiled peonies, starting here with stencil 1. Each one of these stencils are labeled, so it makes it really easy to kind of follow along with me if you want to. I'm actually going to ink blend these a little bit differently. I'm using 3 colors for my peonies, starting with Peach Fizz. Just going to ink blend in random spots on each one of the peonies. Then I'll move on to Lemon Whip and ink blend again kind of on random spots, another open spot on the peony. And then I'll finish up with a little bit of Coral Reef. I am keeping this fairly light because I have a second layer that I'm going to place over, kind of a detail layer over these peonies, and I want to use the same colors but just ink blend them a little bit more heavy-handedly. So that's important that I stay light for the first layer. So now I'm on to my next stencil here, again using the same colors I used before, trying to kind of match up where I ink blended them earlier in the same spot, even though this is a new stencil. This is the detail one. If you don't get it exactly perfect, it's totally okay. This is just, you want it a little bit darker to add some contrast. So I just finished up that detail layer on the flowers. Now I'm going to move on to stencil 5, which is actually the center of the flowers. I am doing these stencils a little bit out of order because I kind of like to do all the flowers first and then move on to the leaves. So for the center of the flowers, I first ink blended with Lemon Whip. Now I'm adding Marigold for a little bit of contrast, just it's a little bit darker, and that will add a little bit more shape to that center. Now we're ready for the leaves, which is actually the first stencil for the leaves is stencil 2. And again, I'm using a combo of colors here, starting with Lemon Whip. Again, ink blending just kind of randomly over those leaves. Then I'll move on to Fresh Pear and just ink blend that sort of adjacent to that Lemon Whip. And when I finish with that Fresh Pear, we will do a little blue. We'll actually do Ocean Breeze. I've sort of done this ink blending style earlier in a previous, I should say, Pinkirch video where I did a rainbow. This one I'm doing more traditional colors, but still this kind of combo of colors over one kind of image, which here would be the leaves over these one image, or grouping of images, I should say, the leaves. So now moving on to the last stencil, which is stencil 4, which is the detail layer for the leaves. Again, doing it more heavy-handedly with the same colors, trying to match up anywhere I ink blended with the yellow. I'll try to ink blend with the yellow again, and same with the green and the blue, but just again a little bit more heavy-handedly, just to create a little bit of contrast so you can see that detail of the vein in the leaves and the stem. It just adds a lot more interest to the image. So now that I've finished ink blending that, my ink blending is all done. Here you can hold to the camera and see how pretty that looks. Has a soft ethereal almost look with the different colors. I really like this ink blending style. So now I'm going to grab the matching die, line it up to the image, and then just run it through my die cutting machine. So I have that image all die cut and ready for my card. I actually did this process twice, so I'll have 2 of those Joyful Peonies at when I start to assemble my card. Now I'm going to match up the matching die, the Celebrating You die, with my sentiments, run that through my die cutting machine. I'm using a little bit of micropore tape to kind of hold my dies in place when I run them through, and here you see I have my sentiments ready to go. I'm now moving on to kind of a background. I have the Ornate Floral Die. I use that and just die cut that out of some white cardstock. And now I'm going to adhere this panel that I created onto the front of an A2 top folding white card base. This is very subtle, but it adds a little bit of texture to the background. I really like it. So now that I've finished that, I'm ready to move on to my peonies. Like I said before, I have 2 of them because I did one off camera. And there's my sentiment I'm going to use. Kind of get everything arranged, and then I'll grab a couple pieces of my micropore tape to hold my die cuts in place, because I'm going to trim off the excess. You could just use any sort of low tack tape for this. I have my long bladed scissors here. I'm just going to hold the blade up against my card base and cut it nice and flush with that card base, and that will take care of all that overhang. So once I finish that, I'll then remove my micropore tape and actually add some foam adhesive to the back side of these flowers and leaves to give them a little bit more dimension. So I'll just trim my foam adhesive here, kind of add it everywhere, and then remove the backing and stick it down. And once I stick that down, I'll do the same thing to my upper portion of my peonies, add some foam adhesive, remove the backing, stick that down, and now all I have left basically is my sentiment. I am going to pop that up as well, so I'm just going to flip this over and add some foam adhesive to the backside, remove the backing, and stick that down to my card front. Now my very final touch is these beautiful gems. This is the Pink Fuzz gems. I added a lot over this card front using some Nuvo drops here to stick them down in place. And once I got that last one done, I stuck down, my card is complete. And I'll hold it to the camera so we can get a good look at all the details in this card. I really love how this one turned out. I love that beautiful Aurora gold foiling, really pretty, and the soft ink blending with those multiple colors. I think that's just a really cool technique, and that subtle background and those beautiful gems, I think it came together really well. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I used, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.